You're standing in front of someone you've known for 6 years, a neighbor, someone you've introduced at gatherings a dozen times. And right there, with them looking directly at you, the name is just gone. Not fuzzy, gone. So you pivot, you gesture, you buy yourself a few seconds with a smile, praying it surfaces before the silence gets awkward. It doesn't. They walk away. And then the name arrives, perfectly clear, like it was waiting for you to stop panicking. Here's what I need you to understand. That is not forgetfulness. It is not normal aging. That is your brain's retrieval system fighting through interference and losing. And if it's happening more often, it means the interference is getting thicker. Not because you're older, but because something specific is failing at a biochemical level. And nothing in the standard advice you've been given is even attempting to address it. I'm Dr. Chloe Arrington, biochemist, and on this channel, we go into the actual mechanism, not the 30-second summary. And today, I want to be direct. The solution the wellness industry has been selling people struggling with name recall is cognitive engagement. Challenge your brain, download an app, use it or lose it. The science doesn't support that framing. Brain training apps produce improvements that are almost entirely task-specific. You get better at the app. The neural circuits exercised by matching tiles or timed sequencing have minimal overlap with the pathways involved in real-world name retrieval. A 2023 study published in Molecules examined what actually disrupts memory recall at the molecular level, and it had nothing to do with mental stimulation. It pointed to specific protein accumulations and the loss of neurochemical resources the brain needs to keep its retrieval pathways clear. The apps were training your grip strength. Nobody was addressing the corrosion inside the lock. That is the specific failure I want to name today. The advice wasn't malicious. It was addressing the wrong problem entirely. This channel exists to translate what the research actually says, past the oversimplified explanations and the consumer-friendly half-truths, so you can make decisions grounded in real science. If that's the kind of information you want consistent access to, hit subscribe. And right now, if you've started mentally rehearsing introductions before social situations just to manage the risk of a blank, type the word recall in the comments. I want to know how many of you are carrying that specific weight, because you are far from alone in this. Let me show you what name retrieval actually looks like neurologically and exactly where it breaks down. Name recall isn't passive storage access. It's an active signal transmission event. Your prefrontal cortex dispatches a retrieval request. That request travels through dedicated neural pathways to the hippocampus and surrounding memory structures. The name needs to travel back. That entire round trip, request sent, file located, signal returned, happens in fractions of a second when the system is clean. Think of it as a key and lock system. The memory is the key. The moment you need the name is the moment you insert that key into the lock. Under normal conditions, it turns cleanly, but over time, a biological residue accumulates inside the lock mechanism. Protein fragments the brain's own clearing process failed to remove. Reactive molecules oxidizing the internal structure. You're using the right key. The lock is gummed up. 3 specific failures create that residue. First, declining nerve growth factor, NGF, the protein your brain uses to build and maintain neural connections. As NGF drops, the retrieval pathway loses structural integrity. The signal still travels but degrades in transit. Second, oxidative stress, a buildup of reactive oxygen species that corrodes neural tissue from the inside, like rust forming in the mechanism itself. Third, the accumulation of tau protein fragments and beta amyloid peptides in the synaptic spaces your retrieval signals must pass through. That 2023 research from Molecules found that when these three factors were directly targeted using a compound isolated from tamarind pulp, tau protein and beta amyloid levels measurably dropped. The enzyme responsible for degrading acetylcholine, the brain's primary memory neurotransmitter, was reduced, and antioxidant enzyme activity increased. Recall function improved in the tested models. The memories were there the whole time. The lock just needed to be cleared. Most people I hear from have already tried something by the time they find this channel. Brain training apps. I've laid out exactly why they fail. They exercise cognitive speed within a controlled digital environment. They do not stimulate NGF production, do not reduce your oxidative load, and do not clear protein accumulation from retrieval pathways. The improvement stays inside the app. It does not transfer to the moment you're standing at your mailbox, and a neighbor's name won't surface. Crosswords, Sudoku, word association games, these engage different circuits from those involved in live social name retrieval. They're not without value. They cannot substitute for neurochemical pathway maintenance. Generic brain supplements or multivitamins. And if you've tried one of these and felt nothing, here is the specific reason. Standard oral formulations are not engineered for neural bioavailability. Getting nutrients into your bloodstream and getting those nutrients to function inside retrieval pathways at the synaptic level are completely different problems. Most formulations quietly skip the second one. You are not failing at fixing this. You were handed tools designed for a different problem. The frustration you feel is completely rational. Let me walk you through what it looks like when something actually targets the mechanism, not just runs alongside it. Day 1. Nothing dramatic on the surface. What begins is biological groundwork, the first wave of NGF synthesis being stimulated, anti-inflammatory signaling starting, the brain's own clearance mechanisms nudged toward activity. The fog doesn't lift yet, but something has been switched on. One important note before I continue. This only applies if what you're using actually reaches the retrieval pathway. The delivery method matters as much as the ingredient list. Wrong formulation, wrong bioavailability, and none of what follows occurs. Keep that in mind. Day 3. You're at a family gathering. Your sister-in-law walks in with a friend, someone you've actually met twice before, years ago, whose name has never quite stuck. In the past, this exact situation would have triggered a specific internal alarm. Brace, redirect, buy time, hope nobody notices. Your jaw tightens before they even reach you. This time, the alarm doesn't fire. The introduction begins, and before it finishes, the name is simply there, clean, no search delay, no grasping. But what you notice first isn't the name arriving, it's the dread not arriving. That specific chest-tightening fear that has been shadowing moments like this one. It simply didn't show up. Day 2. What was happening behind the scenes? While you were on your way to day 3, day 2 was doing invisible work. Autophagy, the brain's own cellular cleanup process, had begun removing tau fragments from the synaptic spaces most critical to retrieval transmission. Reactive oxygen species levels were declining as antioxidant enzyme activity increased. NGF synthesis was quietly rebuilding the structural scaffolding of neural connections that had been degrading. The lock was being cleaned from the inside. That is what made day 3 possible. Day 5. You're in a real conversation, a work meeting, a dinner with people you haven't seen in a few months. At some point, someone says something like, "You seem really sharp today." Not as a compliment exactly, more like a quiet observation, slightly surprised. And you realize the background program has gone quiet. The constant low-level management, mentally rehearsing names, calculating conversational exits in case of a blank, it stopped. You were just present, participating without monitoring. The fear of being perceived as diminished, the one underneath all of this, begins slowly to release its grip. Day 7. You're telling a story, a proper one, names, context, a full timeline. You don't stall. You don't reach for a pronoun to buy yourself a second. You finish it cleanly. The room responds. And somewhere in the moment after, you recognize something quiet. This is who you are. Not a better version, not a transformed version, just yourself, the one who doesn't have to work this hard simply to show up in a conversation. For an intervention to meaningfully address retrieval pathway dysfunction, it has to meet 4 specific criteria. Most things marketed as memory supplements don't meet all 4. 1. It must actively stimulate nerve growth factor synthesis, not passively supply nutrients that vaguely support brain health. NGF is a protein your own brain produces. A real solution has to activate that biological production process directly. 2. It must contain compounds with demonstrated reactive oxygen species scavenging activity at the neural level, not generic dietary antioxidants circulating in the bloodstream. 3. It must have a measurable effect on tau protein and beta amyloid accumulation, the actual molecular residue clogging the retrieval pathway. Without this, you are cleaning the surface of the lock while the internal mechanism stays gummed up. 4. It must actually reach the brain. Neural bioavailability is a delivery engineering problem that most formulations never honestly address. A compound that can't cross the blood-brain barrier in meaningful concentrations isn't touching this problem, regardless of how the label reads. Most products fail on criterion 3 or 4 entirely. I was looking for something that answered all 4 simultaneously. That product is Neuroprime, and the reason it fits these criteria specifically comes down to both what it targets and how it's formulated. The delivery format is directly relevant to that bioavailability criterion, and it's not what most people expect. The full mechanistic explanation deserves more than a 30-second summary, so I'd rather you get it directly from the source. There's a link in the description. What you'll find there isn't a product listing. It's a detailed breakdown of the exact root cause science, the same retrieval pathway failure I've described today, and what was found when researchers set out to address all 4 criteria in a single formulation. Read it. The science alone is worth your time, even if you're still skeptical. Honest expectations, because I think overselling timelines is why people abandon real solutions too early. You may notice a distinct shift in mental clarity within the first 7 days. Not dramatic, but measurable. A reduction in the resistance between you and your own stored memories. Full, sustained results, the kind where the retrieval pathway is running cleanly and consistently, typically develop between 30 and 60 days of consistent use. The protocol is a single drop each morning, under the tongue or in your coffee. 10 seconds. That is the entire routine. And there's a 365-day full money-back guarantee. If it doesn't deliver for you, you receive a complete refund. The risk of the wrong decision is fully removed. If this video described your experience, type the word present in the comments, because that's what's actually at stake here. Not memory scores, not test performance. The ability to show up fully present in the conversations that matter, without the bracing, without the rehearsal, without the quiet background dread. And if you know someone in your life, a parent, a sibling, a close friend, who has started pulling back from gatherings and social situations because they don't trust their own recall anymore, share this video with them. That withdrawal is slow and silent, and they may not recognize what's driving it yet. You didn't lose your edge. It just got buried. And now you know exactly where to start digging.